Hello there, my name is Sherman. I'm coming to you from Tempotron Studios in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I decided to make some videos partly as a gift to you guitarists who've been quarantined, as it were, during this difficult time. I wanted to give something back. I have a few ideas that may help you get off some of the plateaus that you may find yourself stuck on, and I have some more to say about this, but first I'm going to play a few rounds of blues in the key of A and just show you how I'd approach that. And if you hear some things that you'd like to have, and I hope you do, I'll break that down for you and I'll show you how to get to that next level. So I make a little apology now that this will not be for beginners, so I'm going to assume you know most of your pentatonic scales. I'll do a review of that later, and some other elements, and are able to solo. So you're a soloist in the stuck in the intermediate zone and you'd like to get off that plateau. So we'll call this No Plateau Blues. So I'm going to punch my DR5 now and play a couple rounds in the key of A, okay? Here I go. Okay, so I'm going to leave the warts and all in this thing. So there were a few moments there that I think I could have done better, but I'm not going to retouch anything, so what you see is what you get. Now what I was doing there was I was incorporating a number of techniques that, again, I'm going to explain through a series of, I hope to be 15 of these in all. That's my goal. So tonight what I'm going to do is establish where I come from with regard to this style of improvising, also where we'll go in the future toward getting you to develop your inner ability to create, We call this spontaneous composition, as it were, rather than just playing a whole mess of licks. I should say at the outset that if you're looking for a site where you get a whole bunch of licks, that's not these lessons. Later on I may do that. I may open the case and just break down a whole bunch of licks. Right now I'm going to give you the foundation upon which you can put the licks you already have and fill in some gaps so that we get on the same page here. So from that perch we can begin to move on to the next level. So let's review for a second the pentatonic world. I see so many lessons now. I've checked them out on the internet, and so have you, I'm sure. They're saying you don't need pentatonics, you don't need the caged system. I'd like to say that I respectfully disagree. I think you need all those systems, you need everything that you can get, but you need to put them under one roof, as it were, so that you know where they all fit. So every lick you learn can be categorized and accessed for future use. That's how I see it. That's how you get off the plateau and you begin the ascent to developing a better style than perhaps you're stuck with now, if you want to say it that way. So When I was on the road a number of years ago, without getting too long-winded about this, I was stuck on that plateau. So my solos were pretty one-dimensional, pentatonic minor scales, and that was it. And there were even jokes about that when you ran out of ideas, you just play some Neanderthal lick and pass it over to the next guitar player. That bothered me a lot. And then I was riding around and I had a mandolin strung with guitar strings, and I was able to practice quietly when I didn't have to drive, take a shift driving. I noticed that certain classical songs, certain Irish jigs and everything sounded good without any backing. Why is that? Why do they sound so strong? And why do our solos on guitar sound so one-dimensional? And then when the chord changes, we're still doing... And I thought to myself, how do you break free of that? And then you'd hear elements in even Dixieland jazz, or where they're playing around the chords. And I'm not trying to steer anybody into jazz as a direction. I think you should draw on every influence that you encounter and put it, again, as I say, under one roof, and you can use it. So when you're hearing those kind of things, they're playing around the chords. There's something of the arps, the arpeggio going on, but there's something else going on, even going back to the blues, staying with that for a second. When I heard Clapton play, when he's doing, for example, he's doing okay, and so on. He's not just playing minor pentatonics, he's playing major, minor, major, minor. And years ago when I heard somebody say something about that, it sounded like some alien science, and if you're not familiar with it, that's what it'll be. But let's break that down, the major, minor components. So I'll back step here from the key of A, we'll go to the key of G. I'm going to present you with a grid at the end of this lesson, this segment, showing the scales, minor overlapping with the major. So let me not get ahead of myself here. Let's take the minor scales for G, minor pentatonics. I'll review them just in case, and you'll see this on the chart at the end. So form 1, 3rd fret starting. Okay. Form 2, middle finger starting 6th fret. Sorry. Form 3, 8th fret starting, middle finger. Careful, a shift right here. Go up to the 8th fret with your first finger. Backwards, remember that shift. Shift, pinky. Form 4, at the 10th fret, first finger starting. And form 5, 13th fret starting middle finger. And of course good old form 1 appears at the 15th fret. Okay, so now if you're familiar with those, the only thing that I'd say before we leave this area is make sure you're being creative in your shifting between them. So here's an example of what Johnny Hyland calls the low-high kind of scalar thing. I think what he's trying to do is get some contour to your solos. Don't just start and play in one zone. Kind of find yourself, go through the peaks and valleys of your scales. So just using forms 1 through 5, here's what it would look like. So my pinky slid up, now I'm on the 8th fret, go backwards on form 2. Go up to form 3, maybe you slide out on your middle finger to the 8th fret. Now to get out to form 4 there, you're on the 3rd finger. Let's use our first finger going out. Go up there. And you can go out to form 5 maybe. So if you have, then form 1 repeats. So if you have that down, I think a lot of you will have that. If you're intermediate players, you can jump around between those scales, and you got that one-dimensional thing that a lot of players get stuck in. But it's make sure you've got it solid with all those forms. We don't want any gaps. So if you're playing, and I'll have to switch the key of G here. So if I'm soloing just with minor pentatonic, here's what you got. Form 2, now form 3. Form 4. Form 5. Form 4. Form 3. Form 1. Okay, so that's just meandering freely through the scales. If you've got that, we're okay with that. I'm going to move on. If you don't, then maybe this is beyond you. These lessons will be for a later date for you. No shame in that, but here's where we are. Okay, so now the other side of the coin, the major, as you'll see on my sheet, I show you how they overlap. If you're not familiar with this, it's going to come as a revelation to you. Some of you have encountered a little bit of this, like when you hear Slash playing on Guns N' Roses, the Knocking on Heaven's Door. He's playing major and minor. He's mixing them a little bit. I think he plays minor more than I would, but that's to taste, right? Clapton freely mixed those. I love the way he played with Cream and his earlier stuff. That's where I'm coming from with this. So let's immerse ourselves in just the major, and I'll go through what they are. So on the chart, you will see, here's form 2 starting, overlapping with form 1 minor. So major, minor, overlap. So here we go. So form 2, middle finger starting. Form 3, 5th fret, middle finger starting. Shift, don't forget to shift. Form 4 in major is now at the 7th fret. Okay, form 5 is now at the 10th fret, middle finger starting. And good old form 1 is now at the 12th fret. And so forth. The neck was 30 feet long, it would still go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's see how that would sound. It's going to sound a bit watered down, a little bit, actually say maybe a little bit, it sounds a lot less assertive than the minor. Let's say a euphemism for wimpy maybe. But anyway, here I go. And I'm going to use just major and be as creative as I can. So here I go. So I went through form 2 and 3, now 4. Now I'm in 4. Form 5. Form 1 again. Form 2. Okay. So it doesn't sound bad. You could be a little sassy, throw a bend in here and there. It doesn't sound bad. But to my ear, there's something missing. And here's the discovery that I made. And I remember somebody saying this many years ago in a music store where I worked many years. I won't give away my age, you can guess. Their fellow was kind of a Mr. Know-It-All, but sometimes people have something you can learn from, so don't discount anything. He was saying to somebody who was a pretty skilled player, do you ever do the 3-fret drop to major scale application or something? And the guy, it was like, he didn't know what he was saying. And he said, what are you talking about? He said, you go 3 frets lower and it's sweeter, and it's the major. And I thought, wait a minute, there's something going on here. But it did work. So you can move that scale 3 frets, and that's what in effect is going on here. So when you're playing an A, for example, we're in G. When we're playing an A, you'd see somebody going form 1 minor, drop that 3 frets, you're at the... Now what that in effect is doing, it's the relative major minor. If you'd said it that way, it would have been a bit easier. So A major, you can hear it, 2nd fret. Minor. So you can hear the difference there. Can these be used in the same song? Yes. And that's where the magic occurs. So let me give you a ballpark, a general sort of rule of thumb for this. On the 1 chord, so you'll notice on the chart that I'll give you, the 1 chord, if you're familiar with it, in the key of G would be G. So for those 4 seconds, that bar, I'm going to play major. Okay? Now you don't have to do this all the time, but this is to get your feet wet with this concept. Play major, and then when it goes to the 4 chord, which in our blues, I go to the 4 chord right away. I know there are a lot of blues that go 1 chord for 4 bars. This isn't it. I want you to get that shift right away, because when it happens, you gotta adjust. So major for 4 beats, 1 bar. Minor on the 4 chord for 1 bar. Then we're back on the 1 chord for 2. So you get another chance to be major, be sweet. Let's call it the sweet and sour. Then you got 2 bars of 4, 2nd line, which would be the translate as C7, minor. And then you're back to major for the remainder of that line. The last line, D7, commonly the 5 chord. At this point, I'm going to say just, it's your choice. You're free to choose. Later we're going to address that 5 chord with a special treatment, and we'll start talking about modes, okay? But for now, your choice on the 5 chord. Then it goes to 4 chord, back to the minor, back to the 1 chord, one last time, major, and then a turnaround occurs, which is, you know, most of you know is, or you could have some fancy, or you could have, like, it could be as fancy as you want it to. During that, you're not going to be soloing much, but if you're just doing the ballpark, a generic backing, you can play major, and then you probably just grab the chords, or you could come up with some little phrase to get out of it. That's not the concern I have here, because somebody would be doing something there. So for the bulk of the song, it's going to be major, minor, major, minor. So I'm going to play simply and call them out as I do this, okay? So that's how versatile I am. I say with all humility. So I'm going to run the speed down a little bit. Usually we're at 80, so I'm going to bring it down to about 65. And here I go, and I'm going to call out what I'm doing. Form 2 major. Form 1 minor. Now back to major, form 2. Sorry, minor. Sorry, minor. I told you, warts and all. Major. Your choice. Minor. Major. Move up the neck now, major, form 2 minor, form 3 major, form 2 minor, form 4 major, minor, form 3, form 4 major, form 5 major, form 4 minor, form 5 major. Form 4 minor again. Form 1 major. Your choice. Form 5 minor. Form 2 major. Okay, so I proved to you right there, you should never talk and play at the same time. So anyway, so I hope you could understand what I'm doing, even though I interrupted myself. I kind of talked you through it. So you'll see the overlap is as follows. In G major, you got your major form 2 at the 3rd fret, minor form 1 at the 3rd fret, major form 3 at the 5th fret, minor form 2 at the 6th fret, and so on. So you see on the chart how they overlap. Now, that's a lot to digest if you're new to that. I'll just say one thing about it. If you can, before we move on, if you can isolate those two things and move back and forth, take a looper pedal and just do this. So have that playing, and then try this little exercise. Give yourself 4 seconds. Time's up. Minor. Time's up. Back to major. Minor. So if you could follow that, that's how you have to, so you want to go to the nearest note of the scale when that chord changes. So at the boundary, for now, the exercise is try to go to the next best note that you're inspired to play. Find yourself a way to get to that note as smoothly as possible. That'll involve slides. Sometimes you'll be bending a note or whatever you have to do. So that's what I'm doing when I'm playing that way. So I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to try to avoid licks. I'm just going to do the major minor shift, and I want to see if you can hear it. If you can hear it, you're going to want it. If you can't hear it, or if it doesn't work for you, then you're at the wrong site. Move on. But if you're at the right place, stay with me. I'm going to expand on this. Upon this rock we will stand, and you can build on this foundation to do a lot of things you probably never thought you could do soloing. And not just with the blues. We're going to move on to some other different styles, different types of songs. So we'll start with this again, and I'm going to slow it down just a little bit, just so you can hear a little bit better what I'm doing. So again, around 65. And I hope you're in tune with me. I forgot to tune. I'm sorry. Here's some notes. Okay, just make sure we're in the ballpark. It's blues, so it's very forgiving. Okay, so here I go. I'm not going to say what form I'm doing. I'm just going to say major, minor, and you know what it is. So 1 chord's major, 4 chords minor, and the 5 chord, your call, whatever you want to do. I might throw in something that's hearkening to what we're going to do next, but anyway, here we go. Okay, key of G, major, minor, major, minor, major, my choice, minor, major, major, minor, major, change. My choice, minor, major, okay. So hopefully you're with me on that, and if you can hear it and you like the sound of that sweet and sour, that shift, get to where you at least understand what I'm doing and try to integrate that into your playing. You'll find, if you haven't done it before, you're going to find it's going to set you back. You're not going to have the freedom to just wail, but you're going to hold your favorite players to a higher standard, which is no sneaky insult on anybody you may enjoy, because I think most of those guys and gals are familiar with the concept. They just don't flash it as much as, say, Clapton did in certain periods. And I even heard Jimmy do some of that. Everybody's heard somebody take the minor scale and go. They don't know they didn't know why it worked, but you're hinting, you're saluting the major. You're just incorporating it into form 1. So instead of going, you could bend it. So you hear it, you just didn't know what you were hearing. So again, we're going to understand a practical form of theory by way of explaining these things that we encounter along this and categorize them. So when you go back to some of these other videos of these guys playing hot licks, put those licks onto our grid. So in other words, there's no shame in somebody showing you their favorite hot licks, but if you can't categorize them, put them into a slot where you can find them and access them, I don't know what good they would be to you. And I always came away from a lot of those lessons thinking, wow, well, that was a kind of an advertisement, an infomercial for how great these players are, because they're showing you a raft of great licks, some of which you can grab, some you'd never use, but unless I could find somewhere to incorporate them, I don't know what good they are. So, and you have to know why. You have to know why they work. So as we go along, I'm going to explain to you the why. The old saying is, a man who knows how will always have a job. The man who knows why will always be his boss. So I want you to be the boss of this. I want you to understand what's going on. So I hope I've gotten this established and presented this to you in a way that will get you motivated to attack this chart we're going to show you now. And the next installment we will proceed to build upon this. I'll be talking about modes, and I'll be talking about a number of techniques, double stops, the science of bending. All those things will be incorporated into our style here. From a point of view of playing techniques, you'll notice I keep my thumb down. I wear my guitar rather high. I'm an advocate of thumb behind the neck, so get better access. Some of the stretches will do. You might want to rethink some of that. And your right hand, I generally use down and up strokes, and I use a 1 mil pick. Of no consequence. You can use whatever is comfortable. And I do use hybrid picking. Occasionally I'll pick double stops. When I'm not picking them with a downstroke, I'll pluck them with ring and middle fingers. Okay, so just so we're on the same page. And so anyway, I wish you best of luck with these, and I hope you stay with it. I hope we can keep doing this. I'm looking forward to it. I just wanted to give something back. I don't need you to subscribe. I just like to think that you guys are going to be able to do something, and if this situation we're in carries on longer than we hope it does, you'll have something to work on, because some of these are long-term projects. So give it your best. We'll see you soon.